Good morning, and the Lord be with you. Jesus was always on the losing team. That's one of the messages of Pastor Emmy Kegler's One Coin Found, a book which many of us in the congregation have been reading together, and it's a common sentiment among Christians today. Jesus' ministry was not with the rich and the powerful, not with established religious leaders, not on the side of those who already fit in, but on the side of the losers. And we believe this for good reason. God, who created everything in the world, who is all-powerful, entered into the losing frailty of our human flesh. Jesus was born in a losing situation, to a poor girl from the small town of Nazareth, to a people who had lost their autonomy and power, to the all-powerful state of Rome. And he hung out with losers too, with his cousin John, who was arrested and found himself on death row, with women, and not the kind that he was supposed to be hanging around, uneducated, impoverished fishermen, tax collectors, the disabled. Jesus was always picking the losing side. The message is clear. In this earthly realm, we always have some that fail to match up to our idea of success, and we deem those people losers. But God judges us by a different metric. And those who lose by earthly standards find a powerful ally in the one and triune God. The other week, though, the Monday evening discussion group for One Coin Found asked an important question about this idea of Jesus picking sides. What happens when you're not on the losing side? Doesn't God love all people? Doesn't God embrace and welcome absolutely everyone, winners included? The story of the Canaanite woman offers us an opportunity to look at this question more in depth. First, we have to understand why it's important that the text mentions that she's a Canaanite woman, a woman from Tyre and Sidon. Tyre and Sidon were some of the wealthiest places in the Eastern Mediterranean in Jesus' day. They were port cities, famous for their extravagant wealth and their huge merchant class. Mentioning that she's from these places probably signaled to the original audience that she herself was wealthy. And she wasn't Judean, she was a Canaanite. Now, Canaanites and Judeans go way, way back. We hear about them together all over the Hebrew Bible. And while the two groups struggled for a long time, sometimes living peaceably side by side and sometimes taking turns dominating one another, by the time that Rome rolled around, the Canaanites were faring a lot better than the Judeans. You see, the Judeans, the Jews, struggled against Roman rule, and they suffered for it. And the Canaanites, well, they went along with these Roman bullies, and they prospered for it. So, this Canaanite woman was on the winning team. I imagine her as a merchant, wearing silk and jewelry. Maybe she had never even been that close to Judea. Maybe she thought of it as the wrong side of town. And my guess is that someone who looked like Jesus, a poor man, a Judean, wouldn't be welcome in her Tyre or Sidon neighborhood. So the fact that they're in a conversation together at all is kind of surprising. It would be like somebody from the ritzy Gold Coast neighborhood in Chicago venturing down to Inglewood for medical care. And Jesus, well, he didn't come to be on her winning team, but was firmly on the losing team's side. So it doesn't start off well for our Canaanite woman. First, Jesus flat out ignores her desperate pleas for help, and he tells his disciples that he didn't come here for the likes of her. And he even calls her a dog. Every time I read this portion of Matthew, it kind of takes my breath away. Jesus, the one who invites the little children to come to him, who invites the weary and heavy laden, who preaches love and compassion and turning the other cheek. That same Beatitudes Jesus then goes and tells this woman with a sick daughter to get lost. Maybe that's his response to the winners of this world. Get lost. But our reading of course, doesn't leave us there, because the Canaanite woman is not some just two-dimensional rich lady. In these short verses, we realize a lot about her character. Not only is she desperate to get her daughter the care she needs, but she's outspoken. She's quick-witted. And she understands the context of being a wealthy Canaanite woman asking a poor Judean man for help. And she's willing to do what he didn't expect. She's willing to say that her loyalty is not to being Canaanite. Her loyalty is not to her wealth or her neighborhood. Sure, she says, call me a dog. Make me eat the crumbs from the table of the people that you actually came here to serve. And she knelt before him on the Judean side of the border to signal that she didn't buy that being Canaanite, that being from the right side of town or having money meant that she was better than Jesus or his followers. To put it simply, she was willing to leave her winning team and join the losing team if it meant that she could win the well-being of her daughter. And this surprised Jesus. You see, the whole of the Gospel of Matthew tells the story of how Jesus changes his mind. At the beginning, Jesus only works with Jews, with the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And he makes it clear that he's not there for the Romans and the Gentiles. He pays no mind to them, and even actively turns them away, just like in this story. But as it goes on, Jesus begins to interact more and more with Gentiles. It's not as if Jesus has decided to join the winning team and play for both sides. After all, even after he helps this Canaanite woman, he still goes on to die at the hands of the state, with a thief on either side of him, a loser's death. But it's different. After his resurrection, he commands his followers to go forth and make disciples of all nations, the winners and the losers. Still, it's not as if Jesus left the losing side. He's not sitting on the sidelines. Even now, we find Christ among those that this world calls losers. The poor, the disenfranchised, the addict, the dying. And it is when we ourselves feel as if we are losing at this life that we find Christ present with us, at our side, loving us, on our side. Rather than having been recruited to the winner's side, Jesus is recruiting us to the losing team. Jesus is asking us to give up those things that make us look like winners in this world, our wealth, our prestige, and our privilege, in favor for those things that make us winners by God's rules. It is in those places and those people in whom we find the living, the resurrecting, the healing Christ. And thanks be to God that we can always find Christ, whether we are on the winning team or the losing team, if we only know where to look. Amen.